Alright, here we are this morning. We're going to talk about some stuff. We're going to talk about bitrate, 4K, 1080p, publishing to YouTube, why I do what I do, right after this. Publishing to YouTube. I've been learning a bunch of stuff over the last little while. I've changed a few of the cameras that I use to shoot with and that I am shooting with. I went from an iPhone to my SLR camera, which a little older of a camera. I shoot now on a Canon 7D. I also shoot with GoPro style cameras. For the majority of the time I'm shooting mostly in 1080 because that's what my cameras allow. My Canon that you're seeing right now, 1080. My GoPro style cameras, I have a bunch of different ones, so Ions and SJ cams, whatever, but that style of camera, 1080. The only camera that I actually have that has the ability to shoot as of now in 4K is my iPhone. But what I've started doing is editing all my footage in 4K. And here's the reason why. Bitrate. Bitrate is super important. And it really comes down to, for those of us that know a little bit about photography possibly, is in regards to resolution versus compression. And that's probably the best way for me to put it. So if you were to take a format like a TIFF, which let's put it in a small resolution like 3000 by 2000, and then take a JPEG that's the same way, 3000 versus 2000, which one has better quality? Well, the TIFF does. Why? It has less compression, and actually it has pretty much almost no compression or very little compression. Even in the JPEG world, you have the ability to say what level of compression is going on the JPEG. Does that at all affect the resolution? No, not at all. You could take that compression and put it almost at zero, or take that compression and put it super high. You're still going to end up with, you know, a 3000 by 2000 lines of resolution for that photo, but the compression is going to degrade the quality of it. Your colors start to blur together and the sharpness is gone, and all that data information gets thrown out to make the file size smaller. In the video side, that's kind of same, but it's based on what's called bitrate, and it's really based on, again, the lower the number, the higher the compression is on that video stream. We'll look at something like the DJI drones, you know, the Mavics versus the Phantoms, let's say the new Mavic Air. If you look at a Mavic Pro 4K, a 60 megabyte bitrate. So that number is actually really good. It's quite nice. If you go to the Phantom Pro 4K camera again, 100 megabyte. And if you look at the new Mavic Air, it's also pushed itself up to the 100 megabyte. So what happens is your files get a bit bigger, but because of things like motion inside of a video, that allows those textures and all those little pieces of data and information, because there's more of them now, to stay, to retain, to have that clarity, so that, especially during movement, that you don't actually lose that information. Because as you get to a lower one, that becomes an issue. Here's why I edit in a 4K. Most of our cameras that we shoot with, you know, even an iPhone, and I'm trying to remember what an iPhone actually shoots. So an iPhone in your standard 1080p 30 shoots just under around 20 megabit per second bitrate. Now, even when you take that 20 megabyte, and this is why I edit for my YouTube in a 4K video stream. So it's not that I'm gonna retain or gain any actual resolution. I'm not. You know, if you take those 1080 and you pump it up to 4K, you're just replicating pixels to make it bigger. So that kind of quality is not, but what you are gaining is the bit rate. Let's say we take that, I think it's 16 or 17 is the bit rate for an iPhone, and we edit in 1080p 30, and then we upload it to YouTube. YouTube actually, in a 1080 stream, has about a maximum bit rate of about 8. So your 20 automatically downs to 8. So what happens is, in a shot like this, for instance, probably not that big of a deal because there's not a lot of movement. But in an actual stream where the camera's moving around, and I do a lot of things on motorcycles, so I'll be going through, and I have a little sample here for you, so I'm gonna just bring this up here. You can actually see as I go through these trees here, basically all the leaves and everything just muddy right out. So I started with a higher bit rate because the original footage actually looks really good and I have detail in all that. But as it gets into YouTube, YouTube's compression and that bit rate, which drops to 8, destroys all that detail. I edit now, and I've learned this a little bit, is that YouTube actually, when you edit in a 4K stream or a 4K in 4K resolution, changes the bit rate to between 35 and 45. So between 35 and 45, actually, when you think about it, is actually higher than what the iPhone is gathering natively. So yes, I up it, which doesn't really help it that way, but it keeps its bitrate actually higher than what the original was. So all that compression information or all that detail gets to stay, or at least the majority of it, because you are recompressing it. So you are going to lose a little bit no matter what, but it keeps it higher. So I can stay at that 35 to 45 versus dropping to an 8. I don't want to be at 8. Primary reason, my video should look better. Even though they say they're in 4K, they're not. But my bit rate stays higher. And because my bit rate stays higher, it stays closer to the original. And that's always good. Now there are some concerns. And the biggest concern is, well, actually 2 concerns. 3 concerns. Let's say 3 concerns. One is, once you put it in your editor, your computer has to now work at upresing and working in a 4K timeline. And because it's working in a 4K timeline, your computer works substantially harder. So because of that, your edits take longer, and everything just time-wise gets bigger because you gotta wait more, and your output takes longer, and everything takes longer. The renders take longer. Secondly, your files are bigger, so that file that you export and the render files that are stored on your computer are all larger because they're rendering and exporting in 4K with a higher bit rate. And I'll give you an example. I did a video yesterday and I just wanted to test it, and when I exported just a standard 1080p video, you know, my file was about 300-400 megs, and then when I exported it at 4K, I came in at around 2 gigs. So my file it got considerably bigger. I need to make sure I have a computer that can handle that. That's important, because if you can't and it takes you forever, or editing just becomes a pain, then don't do it. So lastly, you have to make sure that you have internet that's going to support the fact that you are going to be uploading such large files. So you want to make sure that you have internet that has good upload speeds, that you have internet that allows for you to be able to send files that are 1, 2, 3 gigs in size, and that you're not limited per month based on how much usage you have, because the last thing you want is that this video is going to take 2 days to upload and halfway through it just fails, because that wouldn't be good. And that's that. This was probably way more long-winded than I wanted it to be, but hopefully you guys get some of that information, and you understand why a lot of the previous videos, they come up and they say 4K, and you're like, well, it doesn't really look like 4K. It's not 4K. There are a couple maybe iPhone shots that I throw in there that actually are 4K, or a couple of drone shots that I throw in that are 2.5K. Just so you know, I got a Mavic Air on order, so yee. But the majority is 1080. The reason I'm doing this is bitrate, and I'm gonna leave you there. You guys make the decision. If you have all the processor power and internet and all that kind of goodness, then why not, right? YouTube's storing it for nothing, and it's gonna be better. If you don't have it, then work with what you have. 1080 is still good. I just like better. That's all I got for you guys. I'm gonna leave you with that. It's always appreciated when you guys comment, like, subscribe, share these videos. Always makes me feel good. Hopefully they make you feel good. Hopefully you learn something. Again, I'm learning as I go. I'm trying to learn all these things to try to make my videos better for you guys. You guys, because you're important to me. Yar. You make me smile. When I see a subscription, I smile. I do. I smile. And I'm going to talk to you later.